As Jim Shields says, the Penguins are free from the tariffs for 90 days. Woohoo! Yeah. Yay, Penguins. Yeah, it happened on social media, which is where everything happens right now. Trump is saying that there will be a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariffs, but only for the 75 countries who have called representatives of the United States to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade.
Only those countries that called the toll-free number to negotiate. Yeah.
In the same message,
Yes.
Trump says, no, the retaliatory trade on China tariff on China will be raised to 125%, and that is due to an extreme lack of respect. He says, based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately.
He is truly, sorry, go ahead.
At some point in the near future, he says, China will realize the days of ripping off the USA and other countries was no longer sustainable or acceptable.
Oh my God. I mean, he is the Mad King, man. Wow. He really is. It's
very simple. We're making deals.
So everybody else gets a pause and China gets a slap.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass.
Right. It is true. He is. He's loving all the attention and he's loving the madness. But apparently he's not loving the markets. The markets were being brutalized. I'm not talking about just the American stock market, but I'm talking about markets worldwide. And I don't know who has gotten to him. I don't know if he's just kind of realized it. He seems intractable on most issues. But now that he's announced this pause, the Dow has surged 2,400 points, biggest rally in 5 years.
Dow up 6.5%, S&P 500 up 7.6%, NASDAQ up 9.7%. The Meta stock is up 10%. But here's the thing, Mark, and you know way more about the stock market than I do, but we've seen these wild swings where you have a plummet and then you have, as we're having right now, a massive uptick. That's not stable, right? That's not what you want to see.
Yeah, well, market volatility is not good. Investors like stability, but the idea somehow that you are going to impose these witheringly horrible tariffs on the rest of the world was such an overwhelming horror show that it was driving the markets down and would continue to drive the markets. It would drive investors away. I still think America has a huge price to pay for this madness that is Trump, these reflexive moves, then the 90-day pause, then back. You see what he's doing with China. From an investment standpoint, it's really debilitating. You have no stability. You have a want on the part of investors of stability. It's the most important thing that America brings to the table. I'll get to Marx Madness in a second, but let me just round out this point, because one of the great things about America is the political stability, the peaceful transfer of power, and also the financial stability. It's a great place to come to actually begin a business because you don't have the government, for example, closing down your successful business willy-nilly. And you would have that like in a China. China would do that, right? I mean, that's the problem with other I'll say communist countries, dictatorial countries, fascist countries. You have such a complete power on the part of the government that they, and certainly China's case, they actually own these businesses technically, and so they're able to take them over at any point. In America, you have due process, you have a political stability. If you get a successful business going, you have the rule of law. These are all things that America represents in such a way that investors find it to be a safe haven here, and in fact, a place where their investments can flourish. Now, enter the Mad King and these crazy tariffs and flexes that he constantly is doing, and you now have instability. And so even as the markets rise, there is a question and a trepidation on the part of investors as to what the future is going to be. I mean, America can quickly become, and it's already happening, a place where investors are no longer, even domestic investors, I'm not even talking about foreign investors. Look at what's happening if you talk to many CEOs. They're pulling back. They're pulling back in hiring. They're pulling back in investments. I'm talking about in their own companies. Expansion plans are put on hold. The reason for that is they're not sure what's going to happen. And that uncertainty, that instability works to undermine America's place in the world. And so finally to the dollar. One of the reasons the dollar is the international currency is, again, because of the stability of America. And so once you ruin that reputation of stability, once you destroy America's profile in the world as a stable economy and a stable political scene, all bets are off. So this is a to be continued, but I would say, you're playing with fire with the last 2 months, including going after Mexico, going after Canada, then the wild imposition of tariffs on the entire world with some kind of ridiculous computation that makes no sense to anyone, and a complete misunderstanding of a trade deficit and a tariff. How you can run a trade deficit with a country, that doesn't mean that they're tariffing you. It's a bizarre place we end up, but just to the point on stability and volatility, it's way beyond the markets. It's the system in America, and the stability here can easily be undermined. And I think Trump and his administration are undermining it every hour. So, but that's the latest. And Kim, thank you for that news break. And yes, Kim, you have traffic and weather together. Weather on the ones, weather on the twos, and the traffic and weather together. KCBS News Time is etc. But I did do a lot of watching of testimony about the tariffs, and also the functionaries who are in the Trump administration, the highest profile of whom I think is probably that Bessent, who is the he's the Treasury Secretary. And as I've told you before, the thing about Scott Bessent is he's a smart guy, okay? I mean, now he's not, you probably would disagree with him on a lot of things. He's a big right-winger. He's a big Trump ass-kisser. And in that way, you have to watch him sort of spin. But he knows this trade policy is crazy. He does. And so I think sort of the fun of it is to watch him, if you will, it's kind of dark fun, try to justify as he's questioned by even friendly media. Okay, this is Fox News where he's being questioned. But Larry Kudlow, who was in the first Trump administration, and by the way, Bessent was in the first Trump administration also, Kudlow actually sort of schools him on trade policy and how these tariffs are computed. Run a little bit of that, Albert, if you would, please.
These numbers. We looked up the International Trade Administration, shows Japan with a 4.3% average tariff, 4.3% average tariff, okay? But in the chart that President Trump showed last week, the so-called reciprocal charge-offs, it has Japan at 46%. Now, I know how you get to 46% using deficits as a trade deficit as a share of imports, but that's an odd way to look at it. I mean, really,
yeah, thank you.
There
That's
may
exactly
be
right. No. I didn't mean thank you. Stop it. I was just going to say, wait, now that you've stopped it, I'll just say he's just identified it. You're looking at trade deficits and you're making them tariffs as though we're being tariffed at that level that there's a deficit. It makes no sense. Please continue, Albert.
But they're not all this much. I mean, 46 is a much higher number than 4.3. And I think there's a lot of confusion in the market about what becomes necessary here.
Well, Larry, first of all, one of the reasons President Trump cut the numbers in half was because of what you just said. The other is that academic studies have shown that it's the non-tariff trade barriers that are the real problem in U.S. having free and fair access to these markets. I mean, if you think about it, I think on most products, the Chinese tariff is only 5%. But does anybody think that that's a free market? It could be the testing in cars. It could be GMO restraints in food. I mean, come on. We buy $3 billion a year of Australian beef, but we can't export to them that So there are a lot of non-tariff trade barriers, and Japan's are quite high. And I am sure that we will have a very productive negotiation with the Japanese delegation.
But you just heard, I don't know if you heard Art Laffer in the prior interview, but Art doesn't believe that the trade deficit should be a metric. I don't really either.
I mean, be. No one does.
If you get your tax cuts, and I guess you're well on the way, you get your deregulation. These are all huge pro-growth items. Okay. We will grow. We, the United States, will grow faster than Japan. We will grow faster than almost anybody. Therefore, almost by definition, by growing faster than the rest of the world, we're always going to have a trade deficit. So I don't know why you'd want to use the trade deficit in a calculation for a reciprocal charge. I understand your point about non-tariff barriers. I get that. That's why I would have chosen a handful of countries, I don't know, maybe 10 or a dozen countries, and really carefully pinpointed it. But to apply this to the whole world on the basis of trade deficits, is that really the best in your judgment? You've been around a long time. You've looked at these. You've done analysis. Is that really where we should be at?
This is BS. Come on.
Well, look, Larry, the trade deficit, as you and Art know, is a result of three things. It's a result of the terms of trade, it's a result of our budget deficit, and it's the result of the level of the dollar. And we want a strong dollar. We are getting our budget deficit under control, which I actually think will help with the trade deficit. And then the third part is the tariff or the trade barriers, which we're seeing. So I am confident that we will, again, as I said, the four factors will be tariffs, non-tariff trade barriers, the currency manipulation, and whether it's wage or industrial subsidies. And I think we're going to have very, very productive negotiations with these. And again, as you said on tariffs, or as you said on taxes, Larry, the real problem has been these barriers, because what we are going to create.
Stop. He's now pivoted. What he's talking about is barriers such that, for example, he mentioned GMO. You can also get into other chemicals and pesticides that are applied to American agricultural goods or produce of one kind or another. And as a result, countries don't accept American products because they violate basic restrictions on those pesticides, et cetera, being used, okay, or GMO, et cetera. So that's what he's talking about. But that's a wild pivot from tariffs, which is really what was at the root of this. Remember, this entire policy was called reciprocal tariffs. This is supposed to be a payback for America getting owned the way we are, according to Trump, for all these many years.
They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal.
Yeah.
I'll do anything. Right. I'll do anything, sir.
I think he does love that they are coming in large numbers to try to get tariff relief. Yeah.
Here's the problem: is the Trump administration is saying they've got countries lined up, willing to negotiate, ready to make a deal. And the countries, as of yesterday, were saying, we haven't heard anything from them. We've reached out. It's been crickets. They've said nothing. No one is answering the phone. No one is saying anything. In the case of the UK, they say they gave us the tariffs anyway. It didn't matter whether we weren't ready to negotiate or not. So, but they sent out on the White House lawn this morning, and he says, it took great courage for President Trump to stay the course until this moment. And he says, every country in the world who wants to come negotiate, we are willing to hear you. But it doesn't look like they're calling everybody back.
Yeah, apparently not. I didn't know that. I mean, he's claiming, as you say, that they want to make deals, and we're
very simple. We're making deals.
Yeah, well, it's not. Apparently, as we were saying before, if you call the 1-800 "Let's Make a Deal" number, there is nobody picking up and nobody calling back. So there is, as is typical in the Trump administration, there is a line of propaganda that is completely disconnected from any truth. You're seldom getting truth from this administration. And that's another problem. I mean, that's a problem for us as Americans, and it's a problem internationally. You just never know what's real and what's not. And that's kind of the idea. This is part of a bigger conversation, but it's sort of the idea that you keep everybody so completely snowed with disbelief on everything that they don't believe fact and they don't believe fiction. They put it all in the same category of, I just can't believe anything. But I guess the breaking news of the moment is that the Penguin ambassador is in the waiting room, sir. Yeah, the Penguin ambassador wants to make a deal.
It's very simple. We're making deals.
Yeah, we are making deals. Please, sir.
They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
He loves that kind of position he's in, where people are circling around him.
I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass.
Yeah. So that is the environment in Washington. The China thing is not nothing, though. The fact that he actually, I think, was being fairly honest, may be the wrong word, but I think it reflects real feelings on his part, because the Chinese punched back. They were not sitting around. China is a huge economy. By some metrics, is as big or bigger than the American economy. And their view is, hey, dude, you want to get it on? We'll get it on. We don't want to get it on, but if you guys are into this, we'll do it. And so they did hit America with reciprocal tariffs on top of our tariffs. And now Trump has hit back. So that ripple effect could be substantial. Will be substantial. Anyway, the art of the deal from a guy who is, he's all show and no go.
No one negotiates like him, don't you know? No one.
He spoke before a group last night at a black tie affair, and that's really where he was peacocking about how much in control he is. Let me see a little bit of that, please, Albert.
Not a war at all, because they're all coming here. Japan is coming here as we speak. They're in a plane flying, lots of them, all tough negotiators, but things that people wouldn't have given us 2 years ago, wouldn't have even thought of it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7, they're giving us everything. They don't want tariffs on themselves. And it's very simple. We're making deals and people are paying tariffs. Countries are paying tariffs. I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. We're going to win the midterm elections, and we're going to have a tremendous thundering landslide. I really believe that. And it's so important that we pass the big, beautiful bill, because that's going to be, and I really think we're helped a lot by the tariff situation that's going on, which is a good situation, not a bad. It's great. It's going to be legendary. You watch, legendary in a positive way, I have to say.
Yeah, is that right? I want to talk to John Rothman about this stuff. I think there's a lot to talk about, and I'm just blue skying that we're on the air. But look, by the way, on Blue Sky, we're the MTS, at the MTS. I think from Chaplain Fred, there comes this, and then I'll finish my thought. $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Chaplain Fred. Hi, Mark Kim. Question: do you think Trump is trying to get back at the CEOs that did not support Trump? CEO from JP Morgan is scared straight. No, I don't think he's trying to get back at the CEOs. As David K. Johnston points out repeatedly and pointed out yesterday in our conversation, Trump doesn't really have a plan. He doesn't have the 3D chess thing is not Trump, okay? Even the complete dismantling of government and, dragging the United States into the horror show that he's trying to drag it into with the dispensing of the rule of law, with the dispensing of government, etc., because he wants to be that through that prescription and that madness, the ascendant despot, authoritarian. That's oftentimes what happens. You essentially create an environment that is so full of unrest and distrust that the strong man rises. It's through history that has happened. That's not even really the methodology that Trump is applying. He's just all ego, and that megalomania that is Trump wants no impediments to whatever he wants to do. And that plan, which is just, again, it's a simple connecting A and B, that plan is to go around the courts, go around traditional law and order, the legal process. The idea somehow that it serves the goal 3 steps down the road, Trump isn't even looking at the goal 3 steps down the road. He's about self-enrichment right now, and he's about policies that serve him right now. And anything that gets in the way of that, he has an issue with. I'd say that's where Trump is coming from. So screwing the CEOs, that's not the kind of revenge he exacts, as you saw with the lawyers. He goes right after them. He goes right after the lawyers. He goes right after the law firms. He goes right after the media. He goes right after senators and the Congress people. There's no subterfuge with Trump. It's right there. And so I don't think it's some elaborate plan to get the CEOs. That's my thought. All right, I have some stuff from a congressional testimony. I want to get to John Rothman. John, you'll indulge me play me, if you will, his Trump's leading trade negotiator was in front of Congress yesterday, and senators were asking about not only just the computation of the trade deal, but the sense of the trade deal, what was behind it, the logic, et cetera. I'll play a little bit of that, and then we'll get to Rothman. Go ahead. This is Jamison Greer, the U.S.
Thank you, Mr.
Trade
Chairman.
Rep. Go ahead.
Ambassador, as USTR's chief of staff in the first Trump administration, you oversaw
Senator
the
from Nevada
negotiation of the
speaking now.
U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, the USMCA, and the renegotiation of the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, the KORUS. President Trump signed both of these agreements. He called the USMCA a colossal victory, and KORUS a historic milestone. And yet, with President Trump's new blanket tariffs, he is ripping up these agreements with our allies that we negotiated with. Why would any country want to do business with us, much less negotiate a trade deal, if we don't even honor our ongoing agreements?
So, Senator, we are the consumer of last resort. These countries have to sell here. They have, many of them, especially in Asia, have built their entire economies around exporting to us. They're very dependent on it. And that's part of why we have this huge trade deficit. With USMCA, those parties continue to enjoy duty-free treatment for many of the products that continue to comply with the rules that were set out 5 years ago. There's a big concern, Senator, that we did not have adequate other protections to stop the flow, particularly of like autos into the United States.
But there was a process for you to renegotiate that agreement this year. We talked about that in my office. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And it wasn't to do these blanket tariffs, correct?
What
so
we have to address is an emergency, Senator.
That's true. And you should be honest. At least as you sit here, as you were in my office, be intellectually honest. Now, let me just ask this, because this is also true. And I so appreciate my
This
Senator
is good
Langford
right here. To
asking
talk about
this.
the
Time matters.
Mexico-Canada agreement.
How long did it take to negotiate that agreement, the USMCA, that you were part of?
We did it at
Stop right
breakneck
there,
speed.
Albert.
We
This
did
is
that too.
interesting. I love this. I love this. Because we're talking about trade agreements, and he's talking about negotiating with all of these different countries, right? 50 to 70 countries that have come to him, and they're all kissing his ass, he was saying, and they're like, right. So she's talking about just the trade agreement between Mexico and Canada and the U.S., okay? How long, she's asking Jamison Greer, how long did it take you to craft this great agreement that Trump is talking about? Does anybody know how long did it take to make that deal with Mexico and Canada, the last trade deal that he's just torn up? How long did that deal take to put together? A year, says Gordon. Anybody else? To me, it's
3 years.
It took 2 years. Thank you, Donna. That's exactly right.
2. All right.
2 years to make that deal. Play the end of the video, and then we'll move on. But that is the point. If it took 2 years to navigate that deal with Mexico and Canada, that crafted deal that you thought was so great, President Trump, it took 2 years to get there. How do you expect to make all of these deals with 50 different countries that are coming at you wanting to make new trade deals? Where is the time? Go ahead.
2 years.
2 years. And now you're telling us you have nearly 50 countries coming to you, approaching you to enter in a negotiation. And you think that you can do that overnight?
India.
Man, you're pretty superhuman here, if that's the case. So let's be realistic. That's all we're asking. Common sense and realism here, Ambassador, as you sit here before us. And let me talk about something else that is.
Thank you. That's really just so his trade negotiator is just getting raked in Washington right now. Even the friends of Trump are looking askance at this. It is madness. He is the mad king. And now, as we start this show, he's put a 90-day pause on all of these tariffs, except in China, where we are in a full-blown trade war. And I'm sure John will want to talk about that in a second. These are not the trade deals you're looking for, says Nastasia, exactly. All right. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would. It costs you nothing. It helps us in the world of YouTube. Yes, smash with your iron rod. Louis says DT imposes new 200% tariffs on Asgard, Wakanda, and Neverland through executive order, abolishes Brown University, an obvious left-wing extremist Chicano group. I am not ruling anything out, as crazy as that sounds.
How does the internet work?
Okay.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.